Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to Cost Control for Construction Projects. Today we're going to be looking at part 2 of short-term schedules, but today we're going to be looking at the last planner system, part of the lean construction methodology, a big part of the lean construction methodology, probably the part that has been most widely adopted in North America. Big construction companies all over have been adopting this, as well as mid-size and smaller construction companies as well see the value in this. So in the previous video, which I'll put the link to in the description here so you can compare and contrast better, we discussed traditional methodology. Well, now we're going to differentiate ourselves and we're going to talk about the last planner system. So we'll give an overview, we'll talk about how it reconciles with baseline schedules, how it really ensures organization really deeply and ensures consistency in the application. I started out kind of with the same idea when we were talking about the traditional method, but I think that this method offers a lot of advantages over the previous method. Not that you can't run projects successfully using the traditional method, but I think in today's marketplace, this is the methodology where you have a lot of opportunity to be able to reduce your costs, get a better, more collaborative work environment, a less adversarial work environment, more collaborative, cooperative, and a lot of benefits of adding value to the client by improving the reliability of the system. So the last planner system does that. I put some links here of the Lean Construction Institute, Lean Construction Institute of Canada, the Associated General Contractors of America CM-LEAN Certificate program, which you can get certified in this area, which really encompasses the whole lean construction program. Today we're just talking about the last planner system, which actually takes up units 3 and 4 of the lean certificate program. We're just going to give a quick sort of overview to what it is. So in the traditional method, we looked at 3 sort of groupings that were possible. And I'll be honest, in many cases with the traditional method, it's really kind of master schedule and short-term scheduling. But in the last planner, there's more levels. There is master schedule, which is similar to traditional. We do have a critical path. We have the activities laid out, but there's some differences. Phase scheduling, 6-week look-ahead scheduling, weekly work planning, and daily huddles. So we've got multiple levels going on here. And that means that we have to really think this through. How are these multiple levels going to be instituted? Somebody that first looks at it and says, well, you've just created more bureaucracy. But the reality is you've created more effective planning. You've created more engagement. You are constantly iterating the plan, but in more detail, with more confidence and more likelihood of success as you get closer to the work. And the concept that I mentioned in the previous video in traditional scheduling is that when a schedule is far away, you have less detail on it. Also kind of means you have less confidence that when the time comes, you can do it. So what the last planner system does is it builds confidence as you get closer to the work because you have the engagement of the people that are involved in the work. And when you have that engagement of the last planner, and the last planner, by the way, really means the foreperson, the person that is working with the subcontractors that are doing the work. The foreperson's usually leading the crews, and they're the closest semi-management person. They're managing their crews, and they usually come from that particular trade. So they understand what is going to occur and what is going to happen. And they can also problem solve really well. So you're really getting them involved in that process, which we very often don't do enough of. And we've talked about the 8 areas of waste earlier in our discussion, which one of our earlier classes and videos, which talked about, the areas of what we call downtime, defects and over processing. Well, one of those areas of waste was non-utilized talent or underutilized talent. Well, if we're not engaging those last planners, we are really wasting a talent to help us better schedule our projects and make sure the work is done. So the master scheduling is we look at the project requirements and we get involved whoever possible that we can have procured early in the project process. Now, one of the problems we have doing full out lean is it's hard to do full out lean under, say, a lump sum contract. Full out lean that encompasses all of the project from the design aspects and the schematics right through closeout really requires an integrated project delivery type contract. But last planner system can be brought into any kind of contract, just that when you bring it in may be affected by the contract type. So lump sum, you'd be using it from when you first start pre-construction planning. So we have this master schedule development, and we try to institute as many procurements as early in the process so we can get inputs. And it's going to be at a somewhat high level. It's going to not be that detailed. It's going to have a critical path, and we're going to have an understanding of how we come up with our baseline dates, but it is at a high level, right? Phase scheduling is, well, we're going to break it down into milestones. So if we're using a scheduling software, we can filter and look at the milestone dates. And so then we might want to look at, well, where's the next milestone that's, say, 3 months out or 3 or 4 months out. And at that point, we're actually going to gather together the trades that are involved in the project. And we are going to do what we call a pull planning session, where we actually schedule that milestone back to the start. So if it's 4 months out, we're going from 4 months back to today, or back to when we plan to start that work. And we're utilizing them, and we're really getting them involved deeply in that planning process. They actually call it a big room, where you collaborate in a large room and you spend some time going through that, detailing out the schedules. And we call that the gives and the gets. They fill out little post-it notes that really detail what one of the contractors is supposed to receive. What do they need in order to start their work? So what do they need to get? And that really tells the other contractor what they need to give to that contractor. And there's a lot in that statement that traditionally we don't necessarily have clarity at, because traditionally we've got the site superintendent that's kind of managing this in and out on a daily basis and sort of being the go-to person and then going to the other trade and adjusting things. We're trying to get this really sort of nailed down. What exactly do you need to get and what do you need to give? And with the post-it notes, we're putting in the connections, the sequencing under time frames from 4 months out till today. I'm using 4 months, but really from the milestone date, next major milestone date, to backwards to today. And we start at the end and we work our way backwards. That's a pull planning session. There's a lot of other information that goes into that, but that in its essence is what it is. And they plan that out during that pull planning session in detail. And there's a lot of collaboration, as I mentioned, that goes on in that process, and discussions and what ifs and 5 whys, and really getting down into the nitty gritty. So that's that phase scheduling. And when that's sort of clarified, it then moves into a 6-week look ahead schedule. So then the 6-week look ahead schedule, we talked about in the previous video traditional schedules, and we talked about a 2-week look ahead as an example. Well, in Last Planner system, we're going to have a 6-week look ahead. And that 6-week look ahead is going to be, again, detailed out. And we're going to have the details for that first 6 weeks coming up based on the phase scheduling. So we would look at the first 6 weeks of that phase schedule, but we would have more detail. The phase schedule, again, it's 3 or 4 months out. We're not going to have as much detail as we'll have at 6 weeks out. Now we're going to have all of the trades involved in weekly meetings. We're going to develop that 6-week look ahead schedule, and we're going to meet every single week. And every single week, we're going to really zoom in from that 6-week look ahead, and we're going to zoom in what's coming up next. What do we got to do this week, and what's coming up the next week, right? And so as this week finishes, we pull another week into that 6-week look ahead. So it's always at 6 weeks from the phase schedule. And when the 6 weeks is getting near the end, that we're almost finished that phase schedule, then we're going to have another pull planning session for the next milestone date. And we're going to detail that out collaboratively. Now it's 6 weeks out on the look ahead schedule, the 6-week look ahead. There'll be less detail on the 6th week than there will be on the first week. But as that gets closer, and this is getting longer because we're always going to be at 6 weeks, there'll be more details. And what we're trying to do with each passing week is to identify any constraints and remove those constraints so that we have the confidence that the trades can do the work, that the trades have the confidence that they can do the work. And if they, for some reason, can't do the work, they've got the power to say, we can't do it, right? So, because you want to hear about it ahead of time rather than the week of. That's where the traditional method falls down when we talked about being autocratic in the traditional method. You know, you're going to get this done and you're going to do this and kind of beat them into submission until they say yes, and then it still doesn't happen. Well, with Lean, we're trying to get that collaborative involvement. And if they can't do it, we're trying to find out why. 5 whys technique, and detail that out, root cause, and then remove that root cause or work around it because it's not going to get done. At least we know ahead of time. So the 6-week look ahead becomes the weekly work planning sessions that we are doing in the process. And then we actually, besides meeting weekly, we actually have daily huddles. Daily huddles, we meet very short period of time every single day. It's a stand-up meeting. You don't want to sit down during these meetings. It's a stand-up meeting because you want it to be short. You want meetings to be short, make them stand up, and they will be short. This is just really, what have we learned from the previous day? If there's any misses, what are they? So we can make adjustments collaboratively together. And all of the trades really know what's going on. And as I've mentioned before, a trade that is really good at what they do, they know what they do, but they don't necessarily know what others do. What this forces, and forces in the best possible way that I want to say that, forces collaboratively, positively, proactively, is an understanding of what the other trades are doing. And by that understanding going through here, we've got less likelihood of a trade interfering with another trade, which happens way too often in traditional methods. This is about collaboration and optimizing for the project. Traditional construction methods tends to be too competitive and optimizing for the individual. It's kind of like sports. If you look at a particular athlete and they're a star player and they hog the ball all the time, very often those teams don't win. A star athlete who also understands the aspect of team and collaboration and really engages everybody in the process, they very often win. You want to think about Kawhi Leonard a few years ago with the Toronto Raptors, that would be a good example of really coming in and working on that collaboration aspect to raise everybody up to optimize for the project. And you know what? Then everybody wins. Everybody wins. We don't have a series of winners and losers, and in construction end up with claims and litigation, and then everybody loses. Last Planner system is trying to get that collaboration that we haven't had in the construction industry going. And this is a very positive and proactive way of doing it. So what we're really doing with this is at the phase scheduling, we're really trying to get people down to, we should be able to do this. That's the level of commitment, because we don't have 100% of the detail yet. The 6-week, we can do it. We're starting to build the confidence that we can do it. At the weekly work planning, the commitment is really strengthened. We will do this. And then on the daily huddles, we did do this. And what did we learn? That we can feed back into the system so we can keep getting better at it. Lean construction is about continuous improvement. And it's built into the system, it's built into the culture, and it's built into the way of thinking. So these are things that we think about when we talk about Lean and Last Planner system. This is why I bring it into this course, because we were thinking about all the things built up to cost control. And by the time you get to a course like this, you have everything it's resting on. There's the saying, we stand on the shoulders of others. Well, we stand on the shoulders of others. We stand on having good site management teams. We stand on having good estimates. We stand on having good budgets and pulling that information together. We stand on having good quality control and quality assurance systems. And this helps to pull the whole thing together. And this information, of course, gets fed up, how we're doing, back up into the master schedule, because we do have to provide updates to the client so they can see how we're progressing along the critical path to the overall project. So this system is very helpful that way. And so as I kind of went through them there, I've got them in these slides here that you can just sort of read through, but the idea is that you're working with a milestone schedule very early on, and in the phase schedules you're focusing in on a milestone. You're pulling that date from your milestone back to the current date. You're getting that make-ready planning, that you're building that confidence that we can do this work, and developing that workflow sequencing and velocity, and getting the commitments by each trade has a post-it note that they're putting onto your phase schedules and through your 6-week look-ahead schedules. And you've got these boards that you're adjusting on a weekly basis to get more detail and more clarity, and they're being constantly updated that way. And your final vetting is that we'll be able to do this. If for some reason we can't, then we would find out about it. There's a lot more to this than just what I'm saying here, but it's giving a good sort of idea of how this process works. And another thing that is monitored very closely is what we call the PPC, the planned percent complete. We actually track the commitment. So if we say that we're going to get 20 activities done in a week and we get 16 of those done, then we'd be able to say we're operating at planned percent complete 80%. We have 80% of our commitments that we're successful on. Research shows, using the traditional methodology, and when they track planned percent complete, what did we say we were going to do and what we actually did? It runs at around 54%. So Lean, we try to strive for 100%. We usually, if we can get it between that 85 and 90%, that's great. If we get to 100%, then we got to question ourselves, are we making it too easy? Are we making the goals not as much of a stretch? And we know all about goals and SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound, because we've looked at that earlier in the course as well. And Lean construction takes that into consideration too. What are the elements of SMART goals so that we can get what they call reliable promises built into it, commitments by the trades and suppliers that are involved in the project. So these are pulling into this aspect, and of course the daily huddles. Now, to be successful, you better make sure that when you're procuring the work with the trades that are going to be involved in this, they understand what they're committing to up front, that there's no surprises, because otherwise you're going to get this feedback: I've always done it this way. This is going to take too much time. I didn't price for this. And you can expect that you get a lot of pushback. You want to be upfront about this and provide training upfront so that there's a good, clear understanding. You have consistency. You've set the expectations. You have a system that you're following. You have goals that you're striving for. And this is pulling everything that we've been talking about in this course and program. Goals, systems, right? Consistency, expectations, soft skills, integrating all together towards success. That's what I wanted to cover in this process right here and sort of wrap up with the aspect of Last Planner system being an excellent tool and system on construction projects. And it's why the industry is moving this way, because of the levels of complexity and how often construction using traditional methodologies is not successful. We have to start optimizing for the project, not optimizing for the individual trade, because that's not going to get us where we need to go. And there's a lot of data and research that plays that out. So hopefully that gives you the idea of how this works, and you can compare and contrast between the traditional and the Last Planner system. And I would encourage you, when you get out there and you're out there, if it's not using the Last Planner system, I would be making inroads with your company to try to look at that as a system. There is a reason why the best contractors are utilizing this system. So I'm Tom Stevenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.